I'll go ahead and just get started. I believe all of you have access to the agenda. And so we're going to kind of skip down to the new items just to, I kind of talk fast, so I'm sure we'll get through everything, but we just kind of wanted to start with the new items first and get through those. And then we'll just kind of go back to the other items that are just kind of housekeeping, just as kind of like reminders. So as John had mentioned, there's just kind of going to be some new things on the invoicing. It's just going to be a little bit more documentation that's going to be required, but hopefully where you guys are doing the invoicing, hopefully it won't be too much more on your plate. It's just going to be a little bit more descriptions and a little bit more lines that are going to be required on your invoices themselves. So like Katya said, she's just going to screen share for me, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through the processes that will be needed now for these invoices. And to just let you know, so they kind of let it slide for the past ones that were submitted on our invoice, meaning the lead agency, the one that was submitted on for like everything that was submitted pre 3/31/26. And so this next invoice that we submit as the fiscal agency that will be on 6/30, everything on that invoice is going to need to be this new format. And so, for example, for your quarter 3 invoice that was submitted, for the 1/1 of 26 through 3/31/26, like you recognizing that you already submitted that to us, but that will be submitted on our invoice to the state. And so that will require that you go back to that invoice and do it this new way. So just kind of letting you know that you will have to possibly go back to that one invoice and redo that one, but then everything going forward will as well have to have this kind of documentation going forward. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Katya will reach out and let you know that you might have to go back to a certain invoice and do it in this new format. But like I say, it hopefully will not be too bad as we're making it sound, is what I'm hoping. So basically what the state is wanting us to do is they want each line item to be broken out on the spreadsheet. And by line item, they're saying each transaction that hits your ledger as a separate transaction that needs to have its own line item on the invoice. So they want it to have, and you can kind of see in the invoicing spreadsheet in that little example, that it needs to have the warrant date, which the warrant date would just be the date that it hits on your ledger. It's going to want the warrant number, which that's kind of going to be more up to you guys. We put on ours, we put the PO number. That one could kind of be maybe more up to you guys what you want to put in there, because they weren't really descriptive as to what exactly that should be. But for us, it just made sense to put the PO number. So there might be a little bit of flexibility maybe on what you're putting in that particular column. But to us, it just made sense to correlate to what exactly it was that we were paying. We put the PO number in that particular one. And you'll see on the example that for like salaries and stuff, it's not a PO number. So that one will change depending on what the line item is being paid for. And then your chart of accounts, which as you can see from the top, like your financial ledger report, that account number can be very long. we could have, 019372-1-430.
Puedes
That
dale,
some
ya
of
te
you
voy
guys
a
have some
bajar la
very
pega,
long
escucha la
account
internet.
strings.
Side low,
And so
riba,
we just cut it off at the 4,300 because as you can see that
making of work
overarching
and
materials and
Friday
supplies,
is starting
it's
and
just
whatever,
that
but I don't even know
4,300.
who this is or
So
what
Colleen,
we're
we
just
can't hear
leaving
you
that.
because some.
I don't know.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, somebody might, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Um, so we're just leaving that at the 4,300 because that's just the generic materials and supplies. So once again, that one, might be a little bit, maybe everybody is not going to have a very clear account code string. So, just let us know if there's like any questions on those particular fields. If you're like, I'm not exactly sure what you want in there, just contact us and we might have to look through it and, maybe make a best guess as to what should go in there. But if you're, usually university, that's kind of gonna how your general ledger is gonna look. But maybe some of these other institutions, maybe if you're at a school district or something of that nature, it might not look exactly the same. So just letting you know, it's not going to match up perfectly to our sample. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions about what exactly should go in those particular fields. But then obviously the next one is just going to be whoever it was that you're paying. So on this one, because it's materials and supplies, it would be the vendor. So that's Lowe's. And then they want a description and, they kind of want it to be a pretty descriptive. So whatever it was that you purchased at Lowe's, that's what they want written on that line item. So we had to list out that we brought, Gorilla Black tape and clear gloves or clear glass and some signs. So, it does kind of have to be pretty descriptive. And then as Katya is showing, then we will of course attach the receipt that shows exactly what it was that was purchased and the amount. So, so like I say, a little bit more detail that they're asking. We did show them that we had all of this backup documentation that we submitted in the invoice. It's just we didn't have it broken out line item like they were requesting. But they came back and said, going back, we don't have to fix it, but going forward, this is the way they want it. And so that was kind of our compromise is we said, okay, going forward, we will do it this way. And so now I'll have her click onto the examples. So in the past, like obviously on that before line item on like line 10, this is what you guys were submitting, right? Is you just had everything grouped into one line item. And so you just had, your salaries, your benefits, all of your travel was in, just all grouped together, all your materials and supplies. It just was nice and neat and it was only one line item. Well, now what they're wanting us to do is they want it broken out and they want a very descriptive of each transaction, like I say, that hits the ledger. So for salaries, they want to know exactly who it was that we paid. So they want to see that name and, kind of a descriptor of who this person was and why basically we were paying them a salary or wages on the grant. And so, you have to put that separate line item for the salary and you have to put that separate line item for the benefits. And then when you go down to travel, travel might not be, I was thinking travel might not be so bad just because, we are having you fill out the food and I don't remember exactly the name of the sheet, but you guys kind of were already having to do that for travel anyway, so this one shouldn't be too much of a surprise. But just breaking out all of those costs instead of having to do it on that other sheet, now it's just going to be on your invoice where you're having to break out your hotel and your food and your parking, and all of those will be listed as a separate transaction actually on your invoice, rather than having to do it on that other travel sheet that was having to be filled out. Um, and then the same thing for materials and supplies, just like I was showing you before, just each one of those, and once again, as they hit the ledger. So, if you've got an invoice, in my mind, when I say hit the ledger, is almost like a receipt. So if you've got a receipt that's, $5,000, you just enter that $5,000 and then you list what was on that receipt. So for each transaction on the ledger, that's how many line items you're going to have. So you can see so for our sample that we had on that other sheet, those are lines, it's too small in there for me, but it's like 24 and 25, I think, of those line
24
items.
and 25, correct.
Okay, perfect. So those were those samples that you could see on there, that's how they would now show up on your invoice. So unfortunately, what used to be just one line item, now you're actually going to have to list that out. And, now you've got what, like 15 or something line items for your invoice rather than just having that one line item that grouped everything together. But you can still see that the amount of the invoice, is the same. It's still the 22,000, or yeah, 22,000. That's still the exact same. It's just we're having to break it out and give more description for each line item. So I kind of went over that a little bit fast, but now I'm ready to, bombard me with questions, or let me know if anybody has anything that they want me to explain more, or if you want me to go over anything.
I have a quick question. This is Javon from Aroma San Juan, and my CBO will probably be able to answer this. But when you say that when the transaction that hits the ledger, and then you showed the Lowe's receipt that had multiple items on it, that was
Mhm.
down below on this example. Did the um oh, it's the total amount. So they didn't have to put every single item that was purchased.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you
Yes.
for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah, and
About
so that's why we
pulling.
say whatever hits the ledger. So if it's that large, that large amount, that 333, that's what we want to see on the line item. But then on that description is where you can go in and write and say, we brought whatever that says on there, spray paint, and you can list out what you bought. And once again, I wouldn't go crazy if you went in and bought 100 items or something. I mean, I don't know if that's even feasible on maybe some of your things, but they don't need to see a whole huge thing. If it's I mean, if you're doing some kind of a workshop or something, and you're going in there and buying 50 different supplies, maybe just make it more generic, like supplies for this workshop or something like that. um, if it's going to be something that you're going to have to write a book on of how many supplies you've got listed, that might just get, very tedious. Uh, but if it's something, that's more manageable, I'm going to say, if it's only like, 4 or 5 or something like that, that you can list on that line item, I would say go ahead and list those out. Um,
Just main items. Yeah, we don't
mhm,
have to list everything. Just as long as there's correlation with the event that's happening and we can tie it to materials and supplies, that's perfectly okay.
mhm.
I think we have a question here.
Hi, I want to ask, sometimes, the department will do reimbursement. So for example, they went to different shop and to purchase instructional supply. Maybe they went to Smart and Final, they went to the Target or some other places, and then they do one reimbursement. So do I need to separate by different vendor, like a Smart Final, Target?
It depends how it will show in your ledger. So
So if
if
Yeah, if in my ledger it's just one transaction.
Then that's okay. Then that's okay. If it's just one transaction, then you just go ahead and just use that total for that whole transaction.
So
And that's perfectly.
how about the column about the vendor? Do I need to put a multiple vendor here?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Because in your spreadsheet there is a column called a vendor. Do I need to put a multiple vendor here?
Well, I guess it would be interesting to see your general ledger because I don't like usually on our ledgers, like if it's a different vendor, that would be listed as a different line item. Like, are
Yeah,
you saying that you have transactions for multiple
yeah,
vendors?
I'm talking about the reimbursement. You know, sometimes they do purchase first and then they get the reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
So for that one, do I need to still put the vendor name for the shop where they get the item, or just
Or whoever gets the
Mm.
reimbursement. You put the name who gets the reimbursement. You don't need to separate it by the vendors. So
Oh, okay.
one staff member that is paying out of pocket, and then afterwards they get reimbursed.
Mhm.
If there's only one line item for them for that reimbursement, that's all you need to do. Just to name the person who is receiving the check from the institution.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
Yeah. And also, this is kind of shows here as well. We have John Smith as an example. He is getting reimbursed for his travel, so therefore you're just putting him as a vendor, as a payee. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Got it. Thank you.
And I think now we can start with the refresher, unless if there are any other questions regarding the new items. Bria,
Katya, before you go on, could you just clarify what people will have to do about their January through March invoice that they've already submitted?
correct. So all of the invoices, the Q3 invoice, which is from January through March, will need to be broken down, and you will see all of your institutions listed on the spreadsheet. So you will need to go, I will just use Cabrillo as an example. So this is their Q3 invoice, as we showed, showing just one line item. So this line item will need to be broken down, similar to the example that we're showing over here. So it would just this one line item will need to start listing what makes this 496 and 24. So if there's multiple line items, hotel, flight, and such, they will need to be broken down.
So I
This
just wanted to get
example.
clarity on that because there was a question in the chat, and I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Of course, of course. If there are any other questions, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
And maybe possibly we could even, are those highlighted in yellow, Katya, all of the ones that need to be on the new
Uh,
format?
yes, most of them, and I will go ahead and add the other ones as well.
Okay, great.
For
That
the
would be
guest. But and you will see here, so now it's only going to be one invoice, one spreadsheet. Before we had two spreadsheets, one for cycle one, the other one for cycle two separated. However, here you will have your cycle one listed in here for all of the institutions, as well as cycle two.
Katya, there's also a question in the chat as to when you want the resubmission of the first quarter of the year, the January through March submission. Maybe
it. It will need to be done before June 30th because we have to submit right by July 15th. So those would need to be submitted, by the end of June.
yeah, our collaborative has to submit to the state of California in August all of our invoicing from January through June. So we'll need you to do that in time for us to be able to submit to the state.
Correct. Right, was there any more questions in regards to the new invoicing or anything? Okay.
This might sound, I'm sorry, I'm jumping in at the end a little. This might sound rhetorical, but are we going to get this new Excel template format, or do you want us just to kind of compare and add the new columns and do the new way? Or I'm sure you probably answered this. I'm sorry if I'm sounding redundant here.
Not at all, not at all. We have all of the tabs already prepared for all of your institutions for cycle 1 and cycle 2. So you will need to break out your Q3 invoice, and they should all be listed in there. So you will just go in there and just break out what makes the totals into the separate line items. And your institutions are already part of the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet has a link over here to our agenda item, which is on the calendar as well. Does that clarify the question?
Thank you. I'm looking for the link because what I did was I actually downloaded it on my desktop. So I don't have like the Google version of that. So let me see if I can find the link. You said it's somewhere.
It is added to our Zoom meeting, to our Zoom meeting agenda.
Okay. Okay. I'll find it. Perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
of course. And if you have any issues logging in, just always go ahead and just email me and I'll walk you through it.
Okay. Thank you.
Gotcha.
And
There
here's
is
the link one more time. So yes, and
there is one question regarding the Q3 report. They're asking if so no resubmission is needed, but if will they need to make changes based on the new rules, or is it just a complete resubmission?
they will have to fill out the tabs. So just filling out the tabs of the data. You do not need to fill out a cover letter. You do not need to send us additional financial reports, just breaking down the line item expenses for Q3 and moving forward. Thank you, Bree.
Right. Okay, well, I'm going to go back up just to our refreshers, but feel free. I mean, if anybody has any questions from previous, feel free to, still ask them. So just some things that we maybe just kind of had some more questions on or things that have come up. So just want to just go over these things once again, just to make sure that we don't have any unallowable expenses that people don't get reimbursed for, because nobody likes that to happen. So for any out-of-state travel at all, that needs to be pre-approved. And that has to be pre-approved with the sponsor. That's not even through us. We have to send all of those to the sponsor and they have to approve them. So please do not, don't even register for a conference or anything. You should get that pre-approved before you submit any expenses for your out-of-state travel. Also with your capital expenses, which for us that is, I know that's kind of changed in the UMB, but for us it's still $5,000. So if there is an item that is over $5,000 that needs to get pre-approval, unless that was already submitted in your original budget plan and it was signed off by the state at that time. So if you, in your original budget, you knew that you were going to have those capital items and we already got approval from the state at that time, you don't need to get, approval again when you actually purchase the item. It's just for anything that came up that wasn't very distinguished on your budget. And so I kind of want to go over, as far as there's a few different things that we might consider equipment and that 5,000. So let's say we have an invoice for $30,000, let's just say. And on that, I purchased 10 robots that were $3,000 each. Would that be considered equipment? Because my invoice was $30,000, but I bought 10 of them that were $3,000. No, that is not equipment, because one item is not over $5,000. Even though the invoice was for 30,000, it's the unit. We consider the unit. So the one unit was only $3,000, so that's not considered equipment. Now, if it's that same invoice and I had $30,000 on an invoice, but I bought 6 robots and each one was $5,000, since that's over, it's actually 5,000 and above. So now that robot is $5,000, then that is considered equipment, and so that has to have pre-approval. And then there's the other instance where I have $30,000 invoice and I bought 10 things at $3,000, but those 10 things made up a robot. So let's say each piece, a leg was $3,000, the other leg was $3,000, an arm. Anyway, all of the pieces all put together, and now I have one robot that costs $30,000. To us, that's one unit. That's considered one unit and one equipment, if you will. So now that thing is over $5,000 for equipment. I don't know if that happens in any of you guys' scenarios, but I just wanted to mention that there are, there's a lot of different things that go into equipment and how we measure what equipment is looked at. So if any of you guys have any questions about what those might be, and you're getting close to those amounts or something, please reach out to us and just pose the questions so that we can make sure that nobody gets caught with purchasing something that they come back and say that those things wouldn't be allowable, because like I say, over that 5,000, we certainly don't want to disallow anything like that. So if you ever have a question, please reach out and just ask us. We'll be more than happy to. If we don't know, we'll definitely ask the sponsor and see if it's allowable or not. And then just on our travel, just always remember those allowable rates. If you click on that link, California rates, we just go by the website and they can change. And so it's just a very good practice to always be looking at those rates because they can change. So it's a good habit to just look at those websites before you travel. But currently, we have breakfast at 16, lunch 19, dinner at 28. And just remember that that does include your taxes, gratuity, and delivery. And gratuity, remember, we shouldn't go over a 20% tip on our gratuity. And then always remember that you should include an itemized receipt with your food receipts. Now, I recognize that some of your institutions, they might not require that, and they might, some places you might get a per diem rate, which is fine if you have employees that submit it that way on their, maybe their travel reimbursements. But when we have to submit things for this grant, they do not pay per diem, they pay off of actuals. So in order for us to get reimbursed, we have to have that receipt, that food receipt, in order to get reimbursed. So I think we've kind of been a little bit maybe lax on that, saying, if it comes down to an audit, you guys are responsible to produce those receipts. But now with this new invoicing, they are requiring us to have those actual itemized receipts. And when I say itemized receipts, it's not just the credit card copy that shows that total. We have to have an actual itemized receipt showing what was purchased, just to make sure, that those unallowable costs like alcohol and making sure that the tip isn't too much and those types of things. So we have to make sure, this is the actual itemized receipts that shows exactly what was purchased at the restaurant. So please just, make sure when that traveler comes back that they do have that itemized food receipt. Then let's see, our hotel, just remember that there is that $250 max per the sponsor. Once again, your institution might have a completely different rate, but the sponsor, that is the set rate for them. This one does not include taxes and fees. So as long as your base rate is under that 250, and then your taxes and fees can be above that. Also remember that if the hotel is providing a complimentary breakfast, that we obviously can't pay a breakfast on top of that unless there's some kind of an accommodation, maybe for some reason you have to leave at 5 a.m. Breakfast doesn't start till 6 a.m. There's special circumstances like that it would be allowed, but generally if you're getting a free breakfast from the hotel, we can't pay breakfast on top of that. And the same thing, like if you're going to a conferences, a lot of times the conference registration cost, it does include meals. So, if you've got meals that are provided with the conference, then we can't pay meals on top of that. So that's why when we ask for those agendas, and schedules and stuff like that, that's kind of what we're looking for as well, is just making sure that those meals are not included with the conference, to make sure that we're not double dipping on any of those food costs, because that is auditors, they love to catch those kinds of things. And so just under travel and food, just like I say, remember to attach your agenda, schedules, the dates, maps, participants, receipts. Basically, if you think you're attaching too much, you're probably not. So we'll, give us what you got, and we'll decide if it's, you've given us too much, but most likely we'll probably be asking you for more. So the more is probably the better. And when you're going on like if you're having a field trip, or if you're, having like a group dinner, make sure to attach an attendee list so that we can easily see or calculate the cost per person. And if you can on those lists, if you can number it, instead of us having to count up to like 80 people on your list or something, if you could supply like an Excel spreadsheet or something that has the count out to the side, that would help us out a lot. But just make sure you include those so that we make sure that we're staying within our per cost meal limit on that one. And I think I've already referenced the attached itemized receipts and paid purchased orders. We can't accept just the purchase order, like a PO itself. We have to make sure that it is the paid, like invoice, or showing that the purchase order was actually paid. We can't just accept just the purchase order, because that doesn't show that we actually paid it. Number 4 is quarterly invoice submissions. And Katya has, there is a PDF that shows when exactly everything is due. So you guys should all be able to see exactly when, you need to get your quarterly reports to us.
And it is also attached to our meeting agenda as well. So you could see a PDF listed in there.
Perfect. And then once again, on your cover letter, on your invoices, they should always have that cover letter, a detailed financial ledger report showing staff names, pay periods, and specific operating expenditures. Underneath, for your payroll expenditures, it needs to be supported by payroll records, job descriptions, duty statements. If staff is charged less than 100% to K16, please provide the actual timesheet or time allocation. This was taken more from kind of like the description from the contract. We're not going to require, and I'll tell you right now that we're not going to be submitting timesheets, but if you do have, like if on your budget you said that this person was being paid 10% on the grant, that's basically what we're looking for, is, to be able to document that this person was truly paid 10%. And so just in regards to that statement, that's more what that is referring to, is the sponsor really wants to be able to clearly see the percentage of time, or, you know, if they're working for a different part of the university, you know, that only that percentage of time is being paid towards the grant and their other portion is, you know, not being paid by this grant. So I hope that's making sense, but that is one thing that they kind of continuously come back on, is where is the other portion of their salary being paid. So just anything that you can help to support showing that the percentage matches up to what was on that original budget. I think Katya, or I think her internet kind of keeps bleeping out, and so she has to keep logging out. So she'll probably come back on and share here pretty quick. And then, so let's see, the calculation staff, and then review all receipts and ensure all are included and submit in one editable PDF packet per each invoice. So this, you know, is obviously very crucial when we're reviewing. You know, there's a lot of invoices that we have to review. So if you guys could help us out with just, you know, kind of keeping them in order of how your invoices, like payroll and benefits, and then, you know, how each of your line items, if you could put them in that order and just make it one file and PDF, so that when we're reviewing, you know, it just makes it a little bit easier on us. That would be really helpful. So that was kind of all of our refresher items. And once again, I go through things kind of fast. So now I'm ready if, yeah, anybody has any questions on any of things I went over.
Hi, Colleen. My name is Nazir Nouri. I'm from Inverse Corporation at Monterey Bay. I have a question regarding my budget about the indirect cost. So I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask, or do you suggest me to schedule a separate meeting with you?
I think scheduling a separate meeting would be the best. But just to remind everybody that you could only charge up to 5% for the IDC. That is the max. That is the standard. If your institution is higher than that, we can only accept 5% and up to 5%.
I can understand, and based on my agreement, I agree it's 5%, but on all direct charges, including stipend, everything. So I see here on the revision of CSUMB tab E, it mentioned indirect cost 5%, not to stipend, but my agreement says including everything. So this is like something I'm trying to understand how we should deal with this.
If I recall, like we don't put that restriction. We say that you can charge it on everything. You might want to check with your institution though, because like I know some institutions will not allow IDC on certain categories. So is it your institution that's not charging the 5% on stipends?
No, our institution are charging. What I mean is that someone, let me see if I can you go to the tab revision of CSU in B? So I don't know who, let me see. Who put so Katya put these notations.
I think maybe let's try to connect offline for this particular question, so
Okay,
we could take a look and review together.
okay, sounds good.
But yes, 5% can be charged on for our purposes on any expense category.
Okay, okay, thank you. I'll
Okay.
schedule a meeting separately with you. Thank you.
Of course.
Bree, did
And-
we have anything
yeah.
in the chat? No. Okay.
Well, if you guys have any other questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us, and we'll look at each individual institution and help out with any additional questions. John, would you like to say the last notes?
Well, thank you, Katya and Colleen, for all the information. And I just want to express my happiness with so many people were able to participate in today's training, that hopefully we can provide the tools to make this as least impactful as possible. I want to remind everybody that we're not suggesting the changes. We're being made to make these changes by the state. Katya and Colleen and the rest of the collaborative staff is available to help out and answer questions. And if I can't answer it, I can find someone who can, and as all my colleagues can. I appreciate the work that you guys do every day to support the pathways in our region and support all the students along the Central Coast. There's a lot of work that you do every day that we don't see, that I appreciate. So thank you for being here today. We will be posting this workshop on our website so you can review it if you have any questions or you missed part of it. But thanks for being here today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.